Today's episode of What Happened When is brought to you by our friends at SafeCade.com. Well, Tony, who am I kidding around with? SafeCade.com is us. We can help you get rid of all your credit card debt, even skip your next 2 house payments. We can save you $5, $6, $7, even $800 a month. It's not a matter of if we can save you money, it's a matter of how much. And I'm talking to you. If you're in a 30-year loan, if you've got a second mortgage, or if you've got credit card debt, what are you waiting for? Go to SafeCade.com. You don't need perfect credit or money out of your pocket. Isn't that right, Tony?
And you can own a home with no money down. Own a home, not rent. Own a home with no money down at SafeCade.com, Conrad.
Make it happen right now at SafeCade.com. You don't need perfect credit or money out of your pocket, so what are you waiting for? Find out how much money you can save for free at SafeCade.com. NMLS number 65084, Equal Housing Lender.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the main event.
Welcome to WHW Monday. Tony Schiavone and Conrad Thompson.
Jim Crockett for Starrcade, 605 NWA. TV title, Cajun Omni, the Bunkhouse Stampede. Flair and Horseman, Garvin, Bogey, Magnum, Dusty, Express Tag Teams. Turner, Bond, Mid-South Joint World Championship Wrestling.
Talking about the great years of World Championship Wrestling, the NWA, and Jim Crockett Promotions.
Tony and Fresno, they win. Look, Schiavone's back again. World title split off center stage. Bischoff, Disney, Hogan, and Nitro. New World Order and the Crow. Thunder, Russo, Arquette Champ, Vinnie Mac, simulcast. Tony's back with Conrad, not your classy podcast. Watch along, try not to laugh. Lowest rules can't pass. This wasn't the initial plan. Tom Zigg's a good-looking man. Klondike Bill, make a chair. Tommy, you come over here.
What happened when?
WHW Monday. And now, let's go to the ring. And here's your co-host. Hey, it's Conrad Thompson.
Hey, it's Conrad Thompson, and you're listening to a very special edition of What Happened When with Tony Schiavone, where we sit down and celebrate the life and times of Mean Gene Okerlund. We're calling an audible this week, Tony. This wasn't the original plan, but things changed, and I didn't think we could let this Monday go by without celebrating one of the best that ever did it. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, and I Conrad, good to be talking to you. Good to be talking to everybody again this week. I think celebration is the right term because I've said it before. People say, who's the greatest announcer in professional wrestling? And when we think of play-by-play, we think of JR. But I really think that overall, if you consider who is the greatest wrestling announcer of all time, I think it's Gene Okerlund. I've said that many times on this podcast because he was a gimmick in himself, and he knew he had a great sense of timing. He had wonderful humor, and he made everything seem exciting. Gene could make it funny, and then when it was serious, when we really needed to promote something, Gene Okerlund knew how to promote it. So you called me, or you sent me a text on the 2nd of January as I'm driving back from New Orleans, and it just absolutely floored me. I heard he had been a little ill, but and I know he had some kidney problems, and it just floored me. And the outpouring of respect and admiration on social media, there was no question that everybody loved him. Everybody says, part of my childhood. Damn right, part of my growing up, part of my love of wrestling. First time I saw Gene Okerlund was the very first Saturday night's main event when he was interviewing Nikolai Volkov and the Iron Sheik, and he said, ladies and gentlemen, we are on the verge of an international incident. And I thought that was so over the top and so great that I just fell in love with him from then.
What a tremendous line. And, you know, he had sort of the opposite career that you had, where he started in radio and then sort of accidentally got into the wrestling business. You started in baseball and accidentally got in the wrestling business. But then once you were done with wrestling, then you got into radio.
Right.
Did you ever have any sort of conversations with Gene about his wrestling fandom as a kid? Because I know that, you know, you grew up on Jim Crockett Promotions, and he grew up, you know, Mid-Atlantic area, and he grew up on the AWA.
Right.
And then of course went to college and became a broadcaster. And obviously that's a passion of yours as well. You guys have any discussions about you guys as Utes, as they would say?
Well, he was, I guess he started the AWA in the 70s, early 70s. He's from South Dakota, and I knew he went to Nebraska. I knew he was a radio guy. But he and I really mostly talked about, he loved rock and roll music, and he loved, I've never talked about this with you, but before I started baseball, I did some disc jockeying work, so I really cut my teeth in radio. And we talked about rock and roll music back in the 60s. Man, he could sing. And we just had a lot of great conversations, but we never really talked about pro wrestling, his love of it before he got into it. We talked a lot about the AWA in the 70s and the 80s prior to him coming to the WWF. But he never really talked that much about his love of pro wrestling. But he knew all about it. I mean, he obviously, if you were a wrestling fan back in the 60s and the 70s, you knew all about the AWA. You knew all about the NWA and the World Heavyweight Champion. But he had also a love of music as well.
One of the things I didn't know until, unfortunately, Gene passed away was that Gene was a bit of a crooner. That sort of took me by surprise. I don't know why it did, but I found out in my research for Bruce's show, Something to Wrestle with Bruce Pritchard, that he actually sang the national anthem for the very first WrestleMania. And Bruce was not surprised by that, but I was. And then I found out that not only did he do that, the dude released an album like way back in the day. That floored me. I mean, I knew that Mean Gene was an iconic stick man, as you would say, and had probably a tremendous broadcast career just based on his voice and delivery. But I didn't think of him sort of in that same vein as like a Jimmy Hart. But he had an album.
He had an album, and he had a great voice. Well, I don't think there's any question that we knew that he had a great voice. And a lot of times I bring up this story all the time, and it's kind of a fun story. We had and I believe I don't think it was between a pay-per-view and a Nitro. I think it was between a Nitro and a Thunder. We had a Nitro in Sacramento, California, and we had a Thunder in Reno, Nevada. So Jimmy Hart and I were traveling together at that time. So we were traveling from Sacramento to Reno and driving a car, and I was driving. Gene Okerlund decided he would jump in with us. So we drove, and the quickest way, the straightest way, and the way that Tony Schiavone would take, because it's something interesting, we went through Donner's Pass, which is a high elevation and always a lot of snow. Jimmy Hart was really big into the boy bands at that time. So we're talking about late 90s. So he had a CD of NSYNC.
Oh my.
Yeah. So he said, let's listen to NSYNC. And I said, sure, because Laurie Beth, my daughter, loved NSYNC. And Gene, he didn't give a one way or the other an opinion. So we put that CD in, and we're going over Donner's Pass, and I'm telling you, the snow is coming down, and I'm like driving, and Jimmy's singing, and I'm singing, and Okerlund's in the back seat, and Okerlund gets into it as well, because we play it over and over and over again. So that's one of my fondest memories of Gene singing. Also, I don't know if you recall that on that wrestling album, remember the WWE wrestling album in 85? Didn't he sing Tutti Frutti?
Bad to the west, big gal, and I love this.
the wall, bam, boom. And he did it with Rick Derringer, which is pretty fun. I mean, it's something that was before my time. So I guess I just never really did any research on it. You know, you sort of, whether you mean to or not, you wind up putting people in boxes. And I had Gene in a box that did not include music. And that just took me by surprise. Let's talk about, Mean Gene and when you first have an opportunity to work with him. You know, you don't see any of the AWA stuff. You see him at Saturday Night's Main Event. And then you actually make a trip from WCW up to the WWF, and you're there for a year. We've touched on it a little bit before. What was your interaction like with Mean Gene when you went north?
I got to, my first introduction with Gene was very brief. And this was even before I started in the WWF. It was 1988. We were up in New York City. We had, and I don't know how we ended up at the Hemsley Palace, but we were working in Canada, and we flew from Canada, and this is how much we were pissing away money at Jim Crockett Promotions. Well, we flew to New York City to spend the night. We were at the bar at the Hemsley Palace. Gene Okerlund walks in. Now, I don't know. I'm thinking it's a coincidence. I know New York City, it's big, and I'm thinking it's a coincidence. Dusty, this is how the paranoia was in our business back then. Dusty thought that Gene had come to the Hemsley Palace. Luger was with us too. Had come to the Hemsley Palace to try to get Luger to come to the WWF. I remember Dusty saying, "You know why Okerlund's here, don't you? Because Vince sent him here to try to pry Luger away from us." And I'm saying, God, we're either really drunk or really paranoid or both. That's the first time I met him. So now let's kind of move forward, fast forward to my first year in my only year in the WWF. First TV tapings was before we did Raw, before they did Raw, before they did all the live shows. And we did TV tapings. We would do Superstars one day and Challenge the next. And we go out every 3 weeks or 4 weeks or so and do a month's worth. We were in Binghamton, New York to do Superstars, and we were in Hershey, Pennsylvania to do Challenge. The night in Binghamton, New York, first TV tape for me, Vince comes to me and says, "We have one announcer with a mustache. It's Gene Okerlund. That's the one announcer I want. If it's okay with you," and that's the way he approached it with me, "if it's okay with you, I want you to shave your mustache." And I said, sure, I don't care. Schiavone did it, right?
Right.
Yeah. So I shaved my mustache that night. And then this is after meeting Okerlund, of course, at the Hemsley Palace, just shaking his hand. Then Okerlund comes around the corner, maybe an hour later, 2 hours later, and he said, "Hey, you're the young gimmick who wants to steal my gimmick." And I said, "I don't want to steal your gimmick." He said, "Yeah, you do. My gimmick's the mustache, and you want to take my gimmick." I said, "No, you're the gimmick." So we went gimmick back and forth. So from that day on, every time we talked to each other, even the WCW years, we called each other gimmick. That was our name for each other. And I would call him up, I'd go gimmick, and he would go gimmick. And that's how we talked to each other. The last time I saw him, he called me gimmick as well. We were in Providence, Rhode Island. This was 4 years ago at the airport. I saw him standing there, and I went up to him he was looking at his ticket. I went up to him and I said, "Excuse me, sir, does this flight leave at 10 a.m. or 11 a.m.? And he pulls out his specs, his glasses, the same type of gimmick glasses he used to pull out when he was, they would bring a contract in the ring sometime, and he would pull out those glasses and read the contract. And he said, "Let me check." And I kind of nudged him. I said, "You fucking gimmick." And he turned around. We laughed and hugged each other. We talked a little bit. And the last thing I said to him, I said, "You look great." And he said, "Yeah, not bad for a 72-year-old guy." And I said, "You don't look a day over 71. And as I'm walking away, he says, "Blow it out your ass, gimmick." And that was the last thing he said to me, and the last time I talked to him. So we called each other gimmick, and he was a gimmick because he was the greatest gimmick of all. He did watch wrestling back in the 60s, and he did know wrestling, but he wasn't a passionate fan like we were. And I even think, as the story goes, he told Vern Gagne, I don't know as much about wrestling as maybe some other announcers would, but I'll give it my best shot. But he wasn't a passionate fan of it. And, of course, I don't know, maybe that helped him out throughout his career, because he became, to me, as important, or many times more important, than the people he was interviewing. And it wasn't the really he was overshadowing people, Conrad. He was so good at what he was doing that he would enhance the talent and still put himself over. Eric jumped on me one time when I said about an announcer being over. He said, announcers don't get over. Yeah, I remember, and I was thinking, fucking Gene Okerlund's over. I remember thinking that, and I didn't argue with Eric about it, but the motherfucker was over, buddy.
No doubt about it. He was probably most recognizable as a member of the WWF. I know that,
right.
He really cut his teeth and came to fame in the AWA, but I grew up on him in the WWF, and you were there, that whole year that you had, and you talked about shaving the mustache.
Yeah. But
you posted something on Patreon earlier this week where there was a couple of pictures of you, Gene, and the Bushwhackers. Tell us about your experience with working with Gene in the WWF. Any other fun stories you can share?
I had a chance to. One great thing about working with the WWF and Coliseum Video was that you basically could do anything you want. You could really and this is what I loved about it. Even though Bruce Pritchard was my boss, no, I'm kidding. But you could let your creative juices really flow. And if you had an idea to go out and shoot something, and we were already out, let's say for TV taping, you could go out and take an E&G crew and come up with something. And a friend of mine, who I consider still a friend of mine, Kevin Granith, who was a producer there, and I used to go out early in the day we were at Superstars, and we were at Challenge, and we used to shoot. You remember a lot of times they would say when they was WWF Superstars comes to you from Fresno, California.
Yeah.
And they would take shots of the city. Well, I would go out with Kevin Granith and the E&G crew, and we would shoot that stuff. And I would also come up with some ideas of things to do. I had a couple of ideas. I had an idea. I said, and this is for a Coliseum Video, let's shoot. And somebody told me it was still on the network. I haven't been able to find it. It was said it was in the vault, but I went out and I had this idea where we would go. We were in Tucson, Arizona. We found this shack, and we found this old grill, and I had this idea where we would send Gene out in his coat and his tie, and he would come up on the Bushwhackers at their hut. And I got an old roast chicken from a grocery store. We put it on the fire, and they invited him to eat some of the Bushwhacker buzzard. And as he ate the buzzard, he turned into a bushwhacker, with the arms pumping up and down. And
whoa, yay!
That's right. And he was a professional. It was burning hot that day, as you can imagine, and the smoke and everything. And he was a professional, and we did that, and I thought it was very entertaining. It's on a video somewhere. You go back and you look at the old Coliseum videos from years gone by, and that they use Gene a lot. I had another idea where we would take, but it never came to fruition. This is how crazy this idea was. I thought, we got Jimmy Snuka. Let's have Jimmy Snuka go somewhere where he would do some diving, like a cliff diving in Acapulco, and then we'll have a guy with a bald cap, dressed up as Gene in his coat, jump into the water as well. Well, it never came about, and thank God it didn't, because Snuka didn't want to do it, and it probably would have, I even went down to San Diego. We were down there and scouted some places. We never did do that, but Coliseum Video would many times. Coliseum Video would come up with some things for him to do. As a matter of fact, back in, I believe it's 87. Well, no, it wouldn't have been. Yeah, maybe he's 87, 86. They opened up a video where he and Heenan got lost. And they were going to try to find the offices of Coliseum Video. It just shows you how great he could ad-lib and how great he played off Bobby Heenan.
A minute, I need that rear view mirror. Bobby Heenan, we're looking for the offices of Coliseum Home Video. I'm looking forward to seeing my very dear close personal friends, Arthur Morwitz and Howard Farber.
This is the shortcut.
Yeah, but I don't know. Is it Secaucus or Sacramento? What are we looking for?
Get that map out.
Okay. That doesn't look like a map. It looks like a piece of toilet paper.
Toilet paper, it's a map.
What town?
Let me see here.
Hold it. Wait a second. Oh, no. What horrible timing.
What's the matter?
I don't know. It's something with the engine.
Are
Oh,
we
my
stopping?
goodness. What is this? We're dead in the water, Heenan. I don't know
What,
what's
you got
going to
it in
happen.
gear?
Well, I'll get it out now.
Can you rev it?
No, nothing's happening.
You know, I'm not a mechanic, and I've never worked under a hood, but I've seen enough mechanics. You know, there's not the brightest guys in the world. If they can fix the car, I can fix it like that. Follow me.
Okay. All right.
I can fix it, I'm telling you.
I don't know anything about cars.
I don't either, but you can't be, not to be too bright.
Can you open up the hood?
Yeah, you got
You
to
know something about, you're an instant expert. Oh, great. The hood ornament, it's not going to do us any
Well,
good.
you're going to have to crawl under.
What do you mean I'm going to have to crawl under?
Well, there's got to be
I've
something.
got a bad back. I can't crawl under here. It's hot, perhaps.
Something bit me. Something's biting me. There we go.
Ah. Whew. What does this mean? What do you see a problem? Is it the battery?
Before you shut up, I'm trying to figure it out.
Fan belt. That's the fluid for the windshield washer. That's not a problem. Well, Bobby Heenan, while you tinker around with the
I
motor
need
on this
tools.
car, let's get up to the ring for some exciting Coliseum video action here in the World Wrestling Federation.
Tires are good.
Yeah, tires make a big difference.
So that's Heenan and Okerlund at their very best. They were just they played off each other very, very well. And so when I did Coliseum videos, I had a chance to work with Gene. He would do anything at all for you, and it was hell, he just like we called each other. He was a fucking gimmick. And some of the best work, I really think some of the best work that he did was back when maybe the fans didn't see it unless they watched a Coliseum video. So as a matter of fact, I'd like to play one more thing for you here. And this is Okerlund and Lord Alfred Hayes. They had a video called Wrestling's Greatest Bloopers. And they did a couple of bloopers, and Lord Alfred Hayes and Gene Okerlund did a couple of takes on this, and you can see how they just started laughing at each other because Alfred had one of the greatest laughs, very contagious laugh. And he got Okerlund laughing. Okerlund has, and you'd be able to see it if you go to the WWE Network. Alfred has a cricket bat in his hand. Okerlund has a plunger for a commode in his.
He is a classic. I think that's what you'd call Brutus Beefcake. Right, Lord Alfred Hayes?
If you say so, Gene.
Sterling
Certainly.
performance.
Absolutely. Stiff upper lip.
Yes. What do you have there in your hand?
This is a cricket bat, Gene. I'm forming a cricket team. I've already asked Vince McMahon. He'll play.
Yes, maybe we can get Vinny and maybe some of the other boys.
Come on, sir.
I like to bring in a ringer from maybe Brazil or Portugal or someplace like that.
would
Just
be
exactly.
interesting.
Now you use a ball to play cricket. Is that correct?
That is correct, yes. Very informative we are.
Right. Let's bring you up to date on the travels of the World Wrestling Federation as we tour the country. All right, a sterling performance, I'd have to say, on the part of Brutus the Barber Beefcake. Lord Alfred Hayes, my very dear, close, personal, longtime friend, part of our broadcast team here on the World Wrestling. What is that you have in your hand?
It's a cricket bat.
A cricket bat. You play a lot of cricket?
No, I'm trying to get a team together. What is that you have in your hand?
Well, you and I obviously have different ideas on the definition of a good time. You know what I mean?
I can see that.
Hey, control yourself,
Sorry.
man.
I'm awfully sorry.
Please, this is no place
You
to
play
break
your
up.
game with the ball?
Well, there's a ball in the back of the tank there, in a tank. That's that's kind of a ball.
So you don't actually sort of...
You see, watch the backswing. Alfred, always nice you could drop in. I can't think of too many more exciting moments we've had here in the Sports Control Center, but as I say...
Can I put your name down for the team?
Well, of course you can. Who are we
Not
going to have for
without
cheerleaders?
We'll have Jane, I suppose.
Yes, how about a couple of the Federettes?
Okay.
Okay, very good. Right now, let's bring you up to date on the travels of the World Wrestling Federation.
Contracts.
Great sense of humor, you know, Conrad. I mean, he really did. He was really a really a funny guy with a great sense of timing in life, and that's one of the great things about him. I really I really loved working with him.
Gene was great just off the top of the head. You know, he didn't require all the scripting. He was, you know, we like to say the phrase freestyling. Gene could freestyle as good as anybody.
Oh, sure. Absolutely. He could freestyle and his freestyling is what endeared him to wrestlers.
Right.
You know, we think of wrestlers as maybe these massive egos and they want the camera all to themselves. And that was not the case. I think, I was not good at this like Gene was. No one was, but he could play off wrestlers and he could really make wrestlers, even better than they were. Yeah, he was great with that. And if you'll indulge me here, remember the years of Piper's Pit?
Oh yeah.
All right. Well, some of the greatest promos are promos that you never saw because they were maybe local for Boston, right, or local for New York or something like that. And Okerlund did those. And those were hard work back then because you would stand up and do endless promos day after, or city after city, city after city. So here's one with Roddy Piper. And this is right in the midst of the height of Piper's Pit. And, you know, people say, and maybe incorrectly, Conrad, that you and I do a lot of dick jokes.
I don't know where they get that idea.
I don't either. Well, listen closely to this one because this one with Okerlund and Piper morphs into a dick joke.
All right, fans, my guest at this time is the very controversial host of Piper's Pit. He is from Glasgow, Scotland. His name, Howard, just a second. How could you hand me that chair? Roddy Piper, I kind of appreciate the way that you do business on Piper's Pit. Well, and I thought...
let me grab a chair of my own here.
Well, sure. We'll sit down.
Thank you.
Thank you. Hey, don't kill a good thing here, Howard.
Yeah. I just thought I'd come around, say hi, and see if you had anything on your mind for a change. Yeah.
As a matter of fact, I do. But you know what I'm going to do?
What?
I'm going to be a nice guy. I'm not going to insult you.
Who's this? Junkyard dog. Drap. You're not going to insult me. Okay, then.
You know,
that nice
Roddy, I'd like to have you tell me about Glasgow. I hear so many good things about Glasgow, Scotland.
Okay, I'll tell you about Glasgow. They have filthy rivers. They have nasty, nasty countryside. They have horrible, horrible people. That's why I left. Now tell me about Poland.
Well, what would you like to know about Poland?
Why did you leave?
Well, let's forget that. I'm going to ask you. This is not Piper's Pit.
No,
I'm the host of this. You know, one thing though that I would like to discuss with you is maybe a sore subject. Is a gentleman by the name of...
I know Hot Rod's been tired lately. Go ahead, I don't mind.
Mr. Wonderful, yeah. Paul Orndorff.
Oh, Mr. Wonderful.
All of a sudden, now I get a rise out of you. After we talked about your new house, now I get a rise out of you.
It's hard to get a rise from me. Mr. Wonderful.
I've heard.
Mr. Wonderful, you heard it? He's wonderful. You've been talking to the apes and the giraffes and chimpanzees again, haven't you? Mr. Wonderful, I think to myself, sometimes late at night I'll lay back in my bed. I'll close my eyes. He won't even cross my mind. Not a damn thing about him. The other day, though, I was in a store. People were talking, never mentioned his name.
Are you starting to lose your hair?
Am I what?
Well, I see you've got a little receding hairline there.
You'd be an expert at it, wouldn't you? I mean, you would know if someone was starting to lose their hair, wouldn't you? Tell me something. Did you start to lose your hair on the top of your head all over?
Yes, well, not actually all over.
Not actually all over.
No, just on the top of my head.
Just on the top of your head. That just comes with time. Now, Orndorff, he's got lots of hair. If you're looking at him from the north end going south, he's got plenty of hair. Nice hair down his back along his legs.
Excuse me, pal.
Hi.
She's all over. She's history. Stick a fork in you right now because we're done.
Mean Gene Okerlund and Roddy Piper. See how Okerlund just he enhanced it. He enhanced it. He didn't take over the interview, but he was a big part of it.
You know, one of the things that was really parallel between you two, because, you know, you really had different roles in wrestling in that you did a lot of commentary. It wasn't really Gene's bag. He tried it briefly with the WWF and then found different duties once they realized that's probably not his strong suit.
Right.
But back in the good old days of Jim Crockett Promotions, you were really the guy who was holding the microphone for some of the more iconic promos. And that's exactly what Gene did. And a big part of the business back then, of course, was the house show business. And you would do the localized promos, like you were mentioning, where you would say, this Saturday night in a steel cage in Roanoke, Virginia, whatever.
Right.
Gene's doing that up north. You're doing that down south. When you go to work for the WWF, did you see him do a bunch of those stand-ups or event center type promos? And what was that like?
Oh yeah. I watched him do those because we would, and this is back basic. I went in there when basically Sean Mooney was doing the event center. So they had kind of changed things over, but I did see Gene do a lot of stand-up interviews in the studio with guys. And I remember thinking, I can't, and I even knew this before I got there, Conrad. Just trying to compare my mic work to his. Fuck, man. There was no comparison. He was light years ahead of me, light years ahead of everybody. He let his personality come through. And basically the only thing I used to do was, as you said, Roanoke, Virginia, the steel cage, here's the nature boy, Ric Flair. And that was it. There was no back and forth with me like there was with Gene and Piper that we had just heard. And I'm going to play another one here with Don Morocco and Ken Patera and Bobby Heenan. There was no back and forth. And I guess I was envious. I remember thinking, man, I can't do that shit like he can do. And I'm not going to even try to do it like he can do because he's the only one that can do it.
Right.
He's the only one that could do it.
You know, I've tried this, what they call windsurfing, and I couldn't be more impressed than seeing the magnificent Morocco from Sunset. Oh, Don Morocco. Don, come on in here. I saw you surfing over there in those huge breakers in Hawaii. Some of the greatest surfing, I guess, in the entire world.
That was fantastic, wasn't it?
It was.
It's so nice to get a chance to chit-chat with you a little bit. What would you like to know about the magnificent one?
I'd like to know, is this a regular part of your training? What kind of a training schedule do you go through?
Well, first of all, above all, you have hard, vigorous workouts, you know, in the water, on the sand, up and down the mountains, running and training. But then you got to watch your diet. At a certain time, every day, every 3-4 hours, you got to eat. As a matter of fact, it's time right now. Would you like a donut?
A donut?
A donut. This is what happens. This is how you maintain championship balance. Have a donut. Have a donut.
No. Donnie, please.
I got donuts all the time.
I see that.
I happen to like donuts. So and then you all...
There, what? Oh, wait. I can't hear a thing. I can't hear a thing you're saying. I can't hear a thing you're saying.
Give me the box of donuts in the house.
The box of donuts.
Have a donut.
You want me to have, your mouth is full. Don't eat with your mouth.
That's okay. Have a donut anyway. You know, just a little bit. You have to maintain a Spartan's regimen. You have to have a... Go and take a bite.
Thank you, magnificent Morocco. God, I'm glad I asked that question. I'm really glad that I asked him. Bobby Heenan, come on in. I don't know. Certainly, you don't let your men train like that. See, I've got the powdered sugar all over me. What? What are you laughing about?
You know,
Seems like everybody's laughing about something these days.
well, the reason I'm laughing and what amuses me is the fact...
Hey, what did you just do?
I kissed my bicep.
What did you do? You didn't just kiss her.
Oh, yes, I certainly did.
Come here.
Are you envious? Are you jealous?
No, but I think that's a little
Mr.
ridiculous.
Heenan.
I got one guy shoving donuts down his
Tell me,
mouth
Junior,
and down his
what a
throat.
Spartan regiment we're on.
Bobby Heenan.
Mr. Patera's in the gym before most of you people get up. And when most of you people go to bed, Stud and Patera are back in the gym. They're athletes. They're always in training. I'm constantly negotiating contracts. I'm constantly using my brains to outsmart all these so-called other brilliant people in professional wrestling. And it doesn't take much effort to do that. John Studd was not slammed by Andre the Giant.
Hey,
I want to make
he didn't
that-
retire.
No, he didn't retire because the man's a liar. He should retire. He's not going to get the money. He got a piece of it, but he's not going to get the money.
Wait.
I'll tell you what he's going to get.
What?
You know those donuts that Mr. Morocco had out here?
Yeah?
That's what he's going to get.
And not much left of them.
There won't be much left of Andre the Giant either.
That is powdered sugar, by the way. All over.
What a slob.
I don't think there's, and I'm sure there could have been someone else out there, but he was so natural and he was so smooth at it that it was like, hell, he was born to do this shit.
Right.
He was absolutely born to do it. And I was just absolutely amazed watching him do his shit. And a lot of the stuff that I watched him do was backstage at Superstars and Challenge. We had all these different studios. They would go, if we would be at an arena where they had these different rooms, they would go in with these sonic boards and pad these rooms, and they would have English 1, English 2, International 1, International 2. I have a pre-tape room. They had like 5 or 6 pre-tape rooms where you would go in, and that's where Gene would do a lot of his stuff. And it was just wonderful. But I really think that Gene would really shine when he did stuff that was live.
Yeah, off the top of the head. I mean,
Right.
good
Yeah.
stuff. So
Right.
when you wind up leaving the WWF, of course, Gene is still there. Did you have a conversation about leaving and going back to WCW, or does it ever come up, or what is that?
Yeah, I talked to him a great deal especially after, I left and I had this long legal pad of pros and cons, why I should stay and why I should leave. And I left, and I've told you the story that, I called Vince back almost immediately and never got in touch with Vince. And I got in touch with Emily, and I told Emily, I said, tell Vince that I want to come back.
Emily, by the way, is Vince's personal assistant at the time, secretary, if you will.
Yeah, Emily Feinberg. And she was, I really liked Emily. She was not only just absolutely gorgeous, but she was a pretty cool girl. So I talked to her, and then trying to think about how I could get back, I called Gene, and I said, Gene, and we had a nice long conversation. I said, I've made a big mistake. And I said, I don't know if next time you're going to see them, or next time you're going to be at a taping or what, but if you don't mind, say something to Vince, because I really want to come back. And he said, well, I will do exactly what I want. I'll do exactly what I can do. And whatever you want, I'll help you out. I know that when you left here, there was a little void, and I'm sure they would like a guy with your talents back. And, he went on and on and on, and nothing ever came about it, but we did talk about it. And I was really distraught, and of course, well documented, went on from there. But then he came to WCW. I never will forget. I was in my office, and I heard that he was coming aboard, and he walked down the hallway, and I looked around the corner because where my desk was situated, and here he came walking down the hallway, and I jumped up and ran up to him and grabbed him and hugged him. And I was so excited that he was there, because I thought now it made us seem big time, because here he is, the very best interviewer, as I say, the very best stick man ever in the wrestling business. There'll never be anybody like him again. And here he is with WCW. So I really thought it was a step in the right direction for us.
Yeah. I mean, I think a lot of people would agree that, the wrestling talent was always, I shouldn't say always, a lot of times the wrestling talent was superior in WCW. It's all the other stuff that maybe was missing. So when you get a Bobby Heenan and you get a Mean Gene Okerlund, all of a sudden it feels very leveled up in a hurry.
Oh yeah, it is. It elevates us. It makes us seem bigger. It's much bigger. It's much bigger of an impact. Gene Okerlund coming to us is much bigger than of an impact. I'm going to say this, and I'm.
No, you're not going to say what I think you're going to say, are you?
I don't know.
Okay.
I just think that Gene Okerlund coming to us was much bigger of an impact than me or JR going to them.
Oh yeah, I would agree with that.
Yeah, right. I mean, JR going to them, years later was a big deal, but Gene Okerlund coming to us was a bigger deal.
Without question.
Thank you for saying that. Very good.
Let's talk a little bit about when you find out that he's coming, because he's so closely associated with the WWF. I mean, he'd been there for almost 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
Did you have a conversation with him about it? I mean, did that not strike you as a little odd? I mean, here you were 4 years prior, like, shit, I got to get back. And now he's down with you instead. Did you have a conversation about how that came to be?
Well, I didn't have a conversation about how it came to be. I know his contract had ended with the WWF, but here's the conversation we did have. I was still, I don't know, 3-4 years, as you said, removed from coming back. And I told Gene, I said, Gene, I'm going to be very honest with you. This is nothing like what we knew in New York. And that's kind of what we always call the WWF New York. This is nothing like what we knew in New York. It's a different company down here. And you just got to be very, very patient. And you've got to forget. Well, and I know it's impossible, Gene, but you got to forget how great it was at times. And I said, I don't know anything about your contract or your working conditions there, but I just know how it is here, and it's going to be completely different. And Conrad, it was obviously Heenan knew it when he came here, but Gene did not handle it well. And he was used to working with Kevin Dunn.
Right.
And he was used to working with Bruce Pritchard. He was used to working with guys who were really professional. And now he was working for a company that was like, its head was on fire when we did TV. And so he was very, very, he got very grumpy very quickly. And he got very, very difficult to deal with very quickly. And he and I had a couple of flare-ups because I was trying to be a producer and he was being very difficult. And we would go down to that little bullshit studio we had down the CNN Center. And if you compare that little bullshit studio that we had down the CNN Center to what we had in Stamford, Connecticut, it's like, my God, it's like a bushwhacker's shack compared to the Hemsley Palace. And he didn't handle it, and he was not easy to work with because of exactly what I told him. Gene, it's not the same, and you got to get that out of your mind. You're really taking a step down in production value and taking a step down in organization, and you're taking a step down. Fuck. And of course, as the years went on, we moved out of the CNN Center and we moved to our own place. And even though it was kind of a warehouse-looking place out in the middle of nowhere, it was pretty nice inside. They spent a lot of money for it, had a lot of big studios. But those early years, it was very, very difficult. And one time it was in a bar, and we had all had a lot to drink, and Gene said, I need to talk to you, buddy. He said, you and I don't have any problems, do you? Do we? And I said, no, not at all. Why? He said, I just get the impression that you're pissed off at me. I said, well, Gene, sometimes you can be difficult to work with here, and I understand why. I get it. Because when I first came here, I was pissed off too. And I missed the WWF, and I missed their production, and I missed the things that we did. So I get it. So if I react to you and you think I'm pissed off at you, I'm not pissed off at you. I said, you're the greatest, man. You're the best ever. I said, I'm pissed off probably along with you about what we have to do here. So at the beginning, it was kind of difficult working with Gene. But again, the more you, like I told you, the more you just hang in there and the more you get into a routine, the more you get over how shitty it was compared to the WWF.
Let's talk a little bit about, coming in. He comes in November 6, 1993, debuts on an episode of WCW Saturday Night. And the rumor and innuendo is that Jesse Ventura is the guy who first talks to him about coming in. And allegedly they had the same agent. Would that have been Barry Bloom?
Yeah, it would have been Barry Bloom, the same agent. And there was no question that Ventura had an impact on Gene coming in. Ventura came in during the Kip Fry era. And I think Gene came in, if I'm right, during the Eric Bischoff's tenure. But yeah, he had a profound impact in that, in him coming in, because, Heenan, Okerlund, Ventura, those were big time names of the WWF. And if their contract was up, there was no question, without question, that Ventura was going to try to lead them, to greener pastures, or in this case, more money. It wasn't necessarily greener pastures for any of us, but it was more money. So it was greener on that side.
Talk to me a little bit about the rumor and innuendo around Gene's contract, because for years we've heard that he came in for huge money and that he got some sort of an incentive for the hotline. What were you hearing at the time?
Well, I heard I was making, when I first, I'll just throw out numbers here because I don't give a shit if people know or not. When I first came into WCW, I made $160 a year. The second year I made $170, and the third year I made $180 a year. When Okerlund came in, I had heard that he came in for $300,000 a year. And then he was going to be up to $350, and then he was going to be up to $400,000. And I don't know if that was true, because we didn't tell each other what we made. We just didn't. But that's what I'd heard. And I had no problem with it, again, because shit, he's Gene fucking Okerlund. And he deserves whatever he can get. And I never, ever was pissed off that people were making more money than me. And then I heard that maybe it was too much of a contract. And now they were going to offer him money to try to supplement this contract. They were going to offer him money from the hotline. And if the hotline made a certain number, you would get a certain percentage of it. And that's why they had him do the hotline. And that's why he took his time to promote it. So I don't know if they renegotiated his contract. I don't know if he had a 1-year contract. I don't know if he had a 2-year contract and then they added the hotline to it. But I just do know that he was making twice as much as me. That's what I had heard. Didn't ask him about it. But that's what I heard about the contracts.
We recently covered Starrcade 1993 with our great close personal friend here on the show, Mr. Cassio Kid. And one of the more iconic things that Gene ever did, WWF or WCW, to me, was the bit he did with Ric Flair at Starrcade 93. The level of realism and authenticity that Gene brought to it when he visited Ric Flair's home and Ric was saying goodbye to the family, and then the ride over to the arena. And I had a conversation recently with Cody Rhodes about that. And he said that was one of his favorite things ever in wrestling. And he really liked that those guys just sort of freestyled it. There was no scripting. Nobody handed them a sheet of paper. They had an idea of, the amount of time they had and the story they were trying to tell.
Rick, come on. We've got to go. Seemed to me like there was so much emotion.
Oh, they're worried, Gene.
Of course they are. Whose family wouldn't be? You're worried.
Yeah, I am worried, but I'm worried for different reasons, I think. I knew what I was doing when I signed the contract, Gene. I gotta prove this to no one else but myself tonight.
I've got a feeling this could be a rather long ride. Rick, go ahead. You think about it all, Yes, your career on the line, but Rick, you've seen what this guy Vader has done. Numerous opponents over the years. I mean, he's absolutely decimated him.
Gene, I knew what Vader was about before I signed the contract. I knew the reality of what I was doing, and I'm prepared. When I deal with this on a personal level, it makes it harder, but I've been in a lot of tough matches, and tonight I've got to prove, above all else, to myself that I'm the man that I think I've been my entire career. I got to prove it tonight.
Jeff, let's get to the arena.
But what we got was probably one of the more important moments of Gene's career. Wouldn't you agree?
I would. I don't think anybody could have pulled it off as well as Gene did. But all of a sudden, you got Flair in his house. Well, we've covered it here. We covered the Starrcade '93 here. You got in his house, and all of a sudden, Gene, who is this jovial guy who is over the top, is now a little bit stepped down in his excitement level. And now it becomes, instead of Mean Gene interviewing Ric Flair, it becomes Mean Gene, the friend of Flair's, talking about his career. It was a very important moment, and it was one of the moments that made that show special.
Let's talk a little bit about some more memories that you have with him in WCW. Bobby Heenan comes over, I believe in late January '94. And the show opens with Gene welcoming us to the show. And then he gets in his earpiece and says he's been told something. And then he introduces Bobby the Brain Heenan. And when I think of, the glory days of the WWF, the two guys out front, a lot of times were Mean Gene and Bobby Heenan. So here he is. And we've talked a lot about Bobby Heenan. We've got a Bobby Heenan episode in the archives, and we've documented, your response to some criticism that Bobby has sort of lobbied your way. But before we address any of that, let's go back to 1994. How excited were those guys to be working together?
Well, I think the fact that they were working together, and I don't want to throw cold water on this, but I think the fact that they were working together helped ease the pain of leaving up there. Now, when they first started working together, they were making pretty good money, and they were pretty excited about this new venture. But the fact that they could play off each other the way they did was great for us as much as it was great for them. And they were pretty excited about being together. I think it helped. I know it did. It helped ease the blow of the step down that you were going to take by leaving the WWF. So it was a pretty exciting moment to see them both out there.
Let's talk a little bit about the time that you guys spent together on the road in WCW, because I know that most of the guys, when they're quote unquote making towns, find themselves getting into some shenanigans. Yeah. And Bobby the Brain Heenan was known to enjoy a cocktail or two. And of course, Okerlund, I think everybody knows, enjoyed a few clear ones. Mm-hmm. When I talked to Nate this week, he was asking me how much I had consumed on my trip abroad. And I said, I went with some guys who didn't drink, so I didn't have any. And he said, well, if Gene can make it in the 70s with 3 kidneys, I think you're okay.
Well, wait a minute. You went on a trip abroad and didn't drink anything?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Who are you fucking trying to fool?
No, seriously. I went to Japan. So over there, they don't have Miller Lite. And,
well, they've got like, Sapporo, don't they?
Yeah. But that's the thing. Like I went with guys like Mark Nielsen, and, I ran into Dave Meltzer, and Jim Valley was over there, and Mike Weber, and of course, Cody and the Bucks. None of those guys are like big party guys. So, I had a lot of water and Coca-Cola, but either way, Gene was a legendary, carouser, not in a negative way, but he wanted to go to the bar, and he wanted to carry on, and he wanted to hold court. And, I saw Gene, flirting with some girls sometime, not in an inappropriate way, but just in a jovial, lighthearted, whatever, cute kind of way. And then he, leaned over and like patted me on the knee, and he says, even at my age, Conrad, you've got to stay sharp. Salesman's got to keep those tools sharpened. And I just thought it was like the funniest thing ever, that here's this elderly man trying to just chat up any 22-year-old who made her way to the bar.
Well, you're right on many levels. First of all, Gene, and I'm talking about the days of WCW more than the WWF, because WWF, I was on the airplane. I was on Vince's airplane out of a TV taping, so I didn't really kind of spend the night that much. And then again, I didn't ride with Gene. But in the WCW days, Gene closed the bar. He was the last one there. And how did I know? Because a lot of times I was there with him. But did Flair ever tell you his nickname for Gene?
I'm not sure.
Doctor.
No.
He called him Doctor. Dr. Okerlund. Hey, Doctor. That's what he called him. And because they would do this routine at the bar where there would be a girl there, and Flair would say, I want you to meet my friend, Dr. Okerlund. And Gene would put those glasses on, and he would be in full Mean Gene mode. He said, my dear, when's the last time you had a checkup? Well, I'm going to let you know that my office is always open. And it was playful. I mean, he didn't grab their ass, or he didn't, but he would just say funny shit that would break us up in the bar. And Flair called him Doctor all the time because they had this routine where Gene would portray a doctor. And these would obviously be maybe a lady or a girl that, was in the bar and was not a wrestling fan or didn't know what was going on. And Gene would play the doctor, and with those, as he called them, cheaters, which he didn't need glasses, but he had reading specs that would be on the end of his nose. He would take those out of his breast pocket, and he would put them on, and he would talk to the girl as he was a doctor. And it was hilarious. It was a great routine between he and Flair. And Gene was just, I go back to this, which I think is funny. I go back to this Gene Okerlund routine that he did at Battle Bowl, and it was absolutely freaking hilarious. Jesse Ventura and I did the play-by-play. Gene Okerlund and Wendy, as we know her now, or Fifi, pulled the names, and every time they would come out of the break, Gene would be talking to her, some silly shit, handcuffs one time. You don't blow on it. It's just a figure of speech. I mean, really, it's pay-per-view, right? So shit, you can get away with it.
Sure.
But it was Gene Okerlund being Gene Okerlund, being the real Gene Okerlund that we saw in the bar. He would do shit for a fucking laugh, and he would break us all up at the bar with his doctor routine. It was tremendous.
I mean, that's the Gene that most everybody who was in the business remembers, right? The Gene at the bar holding court.
Absolutely.
Last year at WrestleMania, when I made my way to the company hotel, as I come around the corner, there is a huge circle around the bar. I didn't have to guess who was in the center of that circle.
Sure. Because his voice, when Gene Okerlund talked, and not necessarily the Gene Okerlund, because as an announcer, you project and then you talk. It's two different things. Not the necessarily Gene Okerlund that projected behind the mic, but the Gene Okerlund that talked. His voice drew attention to himself because he had such a great, clear, ballsy, as we like to call it, voice. And that voice, when he started to talk, immediately, if you were at the bar, you heard him. It kind of cut through everybody else. And not only that, he could also he was a gimmick. Fucking gimmick is what he was. And the gimmick in the bar, Dr. Okerlund, was wonderful. And we need to talk to Flair about that sometime. I guess we'll next time I see him, we'll talk about Dr. Okerlund. But old Doctor, as a matter of fact, I think if you go back and look at some of the in-ring promos at WCW Monday Nitro, or even Thunder, or pay-per-view, you'll hear him call him Doctor.
Talk to me a little bit about what else Gene did for WCW. I mean, obviously we know that, he did the mic work and he did the interviews. And did he have any sort of backstage role or capacity? Were there any other duties, anything else that WCW asked him to do, or was it all out in front of the camera?
It was all out in front of the camera, with the exception of doing the hotline work.
Sure.
Which would have been just, audio only. They also had Gene go out and do some promotions when they would go to a town. Although they would like to try to use Hogan or Sting or the Macho Man or if they would go have just an opening, a ticket opening or something like that, promoting an event, going to the live town. He would do some things like that. But most of the things he did was was in front of the camera. And that's kind of one of the reasons that Gene and I, when he first came to WCW, why we had kind of a little friction between us, because I was a producer, and I was not upset. I was not upset that only thing Gene was making a lot more money than me, and only Eric knows what it was. I don't know what it was, but I was not upset that Gene was making more money than me. I was upset the fact that I had these responsibilities of trying to get a show out and trying to get things done. And Gene was at times difficult. Only thing Gene had to do is come in and do his on-camera work or whatever, and I had to, when he was gone, make sure the show was put together, or the producers under me had everything in place. So that's kind of why we had friction a little bit. But again, the friction didn't last long at all, because he was such a charming, engaging, funny man. And, not only that, Conrad, he was fucking Gene Okerlund.
Right.
He was fucking Gene Okerlund. And listen, I don't think he walked around showing that off to everybody, because that's what he was. But my God, there were times. Listen, there were times that when I'm a producer and he's doing something on camera for us, I'm thinking, this is fucking Gene Okerlund. And I was thinking, there are a lot of times that I'm sitting there with Jesse Ventura thinking, this is fucking Jesse Ventura. That's the impact that the WWF had on the wrestling business and the people within the business back in those days in the 80s and the 90s.
Let's talk about one of the more iconic moments of Gene's WCW career. We talked about the big moment with Flair, who I think most people associate with his WCW run, but he also had some pretty important moments with Hulk Hogan up in the WWF. And maybe the biggest moment of Hogan's career, at least in WCW, Mean Gene's right there. It's the heel turn, Bash at the Beach, 1996. And Gene is once again in that familiar position of holding the stick for Hulk Hogan.
Excuse me. What in the world are you thinking?
Mean Gene, the first thing you need to do is to tell these people to shut up if you want to hear what I gotta say.
I have been with you for so many years. For you to join up with the likes of these two men absolutely makes me sick to my stomach. And I think that these people here and a lot of other people around the world have had just about enough of this man, and you want to put yourself in this group? You've got to be kidding me.
Carry me through Bash at the Beach 96 and Mean Gene being right there in the middle of it all, because you're going to close the show with a pretty iconic line yourself.
Yeah. The Hulk Hogan, you can go straight to hell line. Again, I'm not so sure. I remember afterwards, I said, Gene said, what do you think about that? And I said, I thought it was fucking tremendous. And I'm not so sure if Gene knew. Well, I'm sure he's in the back, so he knows a lot more than I do. And I still maintain, again, that we did not know, Heenan and I out at the broadcast table did not know exactly what was going to happen. We had heard so many things. Gene obviously knew what was going to happen. And Gene, I thought, you think about, Gene held, if I'm right, and I know I am, Gene held the microphone when Hulk Hogan beat the Iron Sheik to win the WWF title in the back.
Right.
Remember the champagne and everything?
Absolutely.
All right, it's absolute bedlam and pandemonium here back in the locker rooms at Madison Square Garden.
I'm really proud of you. And you're a good wrestler right now.
Oh, the champagne is flowing. Ivan Putski.
Hey, I'm proud of you, Jack. Very good, huh? Can you
It's Super Monday at the Garden with the new heavyweight champion, Hulk.
That was the beginning of Hulkamania. And now Gene is holding the microphone at the beginning of the NWO. So you have Hogan and Okerlund kind of bookending Hogan's career as a babyface. So he is forever tied with Hulk Hogan, tied into him. Listen, Tony Schiavone holding the microphone, Jim Ross holding the microphone, Mike Tenay, Eric Bischoff, it just doesn't work. It's got to be Gene Okerlund, and I think Gene Okerlund being there made it a bigger moment than, or helped make it the big moment that it was.
It was a huge moment, and I don't know that it would have been the same without Mean Gene there. It's a little thing, but it really does hit you in the feels when you see this familiar scene of Mean Gene and Hulk Hogan, the perennial babyface, and now he's turning his back on the fans. Gene's off TV for a little while, towards the end of 1996. And Meltzer would report that Okerlund's contract with WCW had expired and he's no longer going to be with the company. So he says goodbye to a lot of the people,
right?
On Tuesday. And then on Thursday, everybody gets a memo saying that he's done.
Right.
But of course, somewhere he winds up coming back and allegedly comes back with a big raise. But according to the rumor and innuendo, he at least had a conversation with Vince McMahon about coming back.
Right.
In late 96, did you think Gene was going back?
Yeah, I sure did. And because again, he was not happy. It was not, the working conditions weren't what I go back to this, Conrad. I really believe this. And this is something that J.J. Dillon told me years ago. And he said, in professional wrestling, he said, actually in any walk of life, you cannot put a price on happiness. We all try to make as much money as we can, and wrestling afforded us back in the 90s making great livings. I won't deny that. But what's the price you would put on being happy in your job? And there's no price. And that's what Okerlund was going through at that time. And that was, this money is great, but am I happy? And if you saved your money, and like, I don't know if Okerlund did or not, then you can just walk away from an unhappy and say, you know what, I'll do it for less money. But he was obviously not happy because of our working conditions. It's not a fault of any one person. It's just the machine that we were.
Right.
It was not the same. It wasn't the same. And Okerlund felt it. I felt it first of guys who came here. Okerlund felt it. Heenan felt it. Jesse felt it. All of us. And it was just not the same. So he was unhappy. And so that's why they parted ways. And then, of course, he came back for more money. And again, I guess for Okerlund, maybe there was a price on being unhappy. And it was for me. I mean, I sucked it up. But it was unhappy working conditions. And it was unhappy working conditions, all of us. Not because of any one person, only because it was different. And you just had to ignore it. And it was hard for Gene to ignore it at times.
Allegedly, when he comes back, he's coming back on a contract that only has him working like 5 days a month, which would be 4 nitros and a pay-per-view.
Yeah.
And that return happens sometime in November. So he's out for maybe a week or two in September, all of October. But he's back. And we see him on TV, I believe on November 11th on that nitro. Chat me up behind the scenes. You're talking about how unhappy he is with, the conditions, talking about work and studio and things like that, organization things.
Yeah.
Who did Gene sort of hang out with in WCW? Bobby Heenan and who else?
Well, I always thought he kind of hung out with Flair.
Sure.
In WCW. So, backstage, when he came back, I remember when he came back, he was happy, but he also seemed to me to be a little numb to all of this. Like, I'm back, I'm happy to be back, but I'm just going to, again, just kind of just let things fall where they may. But yeah, he hung out with Flair a lot. There was a time where announcers traveled together, and it would be me driving with Okerlund and Heenan and Dusty, or me driving with Okerlund, Heenan, Lee Marshall, and Mike Tenay. And he traveled with us a lot. And, everybody, when we traveled, everybody drank except me because I'm driving. And we had some great conversations. And Gene had much like something that I played earlier, Gene, and you heard it with Lord Alfred Hayes, Gene had a very contagious laugh.
Right.
And when he started laughing about something, it got everybody to laugh about something. So we had some pretty funny conversations. But really, in the back, I really think that the guy he hung out with the most was Flair.
Yeah, I mean, I think you can go back and listen to the old Woo Nation episodes, and we may find a way to link those on our YouTube, or maybe find some links that we can post on Twitter, because Gene was actually on Woo Nation and the Ric Flair show. So 2 separate appearances where we got to catch up with Gene, and they're just natural camaraderie and chemistry. Those guys have they've had some fun times together for sure.
Yes, they had some fun times together. And also, Conrad, there's when Gene passed away, and we had a lot of response from our listeners, not only on Twitter, on social media, but on especially our friends on Patreon, who said they remember the Gene Okerlund Ric Flair interview, which is a very famous interview at the end of Royal Rumble of 1992, when Flair won the Royal Rumble and won the WWF championship. Gene does something that in this interview that just absolutely cracked me up.
All right, by virtue of winning the Royal Rumble, we have a brand new World Wrestling Federation champion as the press watches on. At this time, to present the title belt to the new champion, our president, the distinguished Jack Tunney.
Congratulations, Ric Flair, on becoming the undisputed champion of the World Wrestling Federation.
Let me just say, after Vera distorting the belt, to proclaim me the real world champion, I'm going to tell you all, with a tear in my eye, this is the greatest moment in my life. When you walk around this world and you tell everybody you're number one, the only way you get to stay number one is to be number one. And this is the only title in the wrestling world that makes you number one. When you are the king of the WWF, you rule the world. Think about it like that, Mr. Perfect.
Guys, hold on up there, Dragon.
Woo!
We did it! Let's give a big one! Woo! You did it! I was never so impressed with anything I've ever seen in all my life. He went out there for over 60 minutes, never took a back step, took it to Hogan, took it to The Undertaker, took it to whoever got in that ring. That's why he is,
hey, Bobby,
you can call him now, the real world's heavyweight champion.
We're not the kind of guys that say, we told you so, but we told you so.
Okay, very good. Ric Flair, you have made put that cigarette out. You have made World Wrestling Federation history here tonight.
It's the greatest moment of my life. I want to jump. I want to party. But I got to tell you like this. For the Hulk Hogans and the Macho Mans and the Pipers and the Sids, now it's Ric Flair. And y'all pay homage to the man. Woo! I love it.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, that wraps it up. We hope you have enjoyed your Royal Rumble. For my broadcast colleagues, Gorilla Monsoon, Bobby the Brain Heenan, Sean Mooney, Mean Gene Okerlund, saying so long from the Knickerbocker Arena in Albany, New York.
Royal Rumble 92, one of the more iconic moments of Ric Flair's career. I mean, the forever NWA world champion has finally come north and done the unthinkable, and he's with the WWF, but now he's the champion in a place where a lot of people thought that could never happen. It's the land of the giants. It's Hulk Hogan. It's New York. And it finally happens. And in the middle of this heartfelt promo, put that cigarette out, which Bruce Pritchard sort of freestyled, was probably something he was saying to Pat Patterson. Well, let's switch gears here. Let's talk about WCW a little more. During this is a crazy time in wrestling, and I admit I wasn't watching as much as maybe I should have been, but during the Millionaires Club versus New Blood feud, that angle that you guys did, I think in 2000, Mean Gene joins the Millionaires Club and feuds with Pamela Paulshock.
Yeah.
Yeah. Some interesting ones there. August 9th, 2000 on Thunder, Gene has his first wrestling match in 16 years. He's going to team up with Buff Bagwell. That's right. Shave Bagwell, to defeat Canyon and Mark Madden. Mark Madden on one side, Gene Okerlund on the other.
Yeah.
Who booked this shit?
You didn't like it?
Oh yeah. Tell me about this 5-star classic you remember.
Look. All right. If you're going to look at the match and you're going to take the match and lift it out and say, was this a great wrestling match?
No, of course not. I'm just busting balls. But how did Gene feel about getting in the ring? This has got to be something Gene's like, what? You want me to do what? I'm not doing that.
Right. Yeah, of course. But Gene's a pro. Gene do it. He's a pro. And it was fucking horrible, but the build up was fucking hilarious to it. Sure. And that's what it was about, right? Entertainment. And if you say, who booked this shit? Who do you think booked this shit?
Well, I'm going to guess it was probably Vince Russo.
Oh, there you go. Okay. And but that was all Vince Russo. And that's the kind of things that Vince did. And, I had no problem with it at all. I thought it was, it wasn't anything like, Gene and Hulk Hogan and the build up that they had, when, when they were in Minneapolis and they had the training video of Hogan and Gene. It wasn't anything like that at all. It was even more campy than that. It was probably more campy than just about anything else. But he pulled it off as Gene Okerlund pulled off everything.
He pulled off something because Mean Gene is going to be on the receiving end of a low blow from Mark Madden.
Yeah. And
Gene then pulls out his cup, rubs it in Madden's face, and Bagwell gives him a blockbuster, and that's the end.
How about that?
A week later, they have Gene's first ever singles match where he defeated Mark Madden in a street fight. Obviously, he was not happy about any of this.
Right.
But he's with WCW until the end. And I think a lot of us have blocked out these more painful memories. Yeah. Not the best time of WCW, but right around the time that WCW goes down, Gene signs a new 3-year deal with Turner Sports. So he wound up being taken care of there, but then does get to return to the WWF to do commentary just a couple of months later, or maybe the next month, actually. A week later at WrestleMania.
Right, WrestleMania 17.
That's right. Yeah, him and Bobby Heenan are back at the table.
And Lamb Chop.
Or Jerry Lewis.
Used to be the mayor of Houston.
Well, we're in Houston, so this is a homecoming of sorts for Brother Love in the gigantic Gimmick Battle Royal at WrestleMania. Bobby, you can just feel it, can't you? The excitement in the air. It's so thick you can cut it with a knife.
Keep your knife to yourself.
Did I say that?
Say whatever you want.
Say whatever you want.
I'm the host. And Sergeant
Sergeant Slaughter. This guy, a mainstay in the World Wrestling Federation for a number of years, coming here for the Gimmick Battle Royal. Here you see him in action.
That was then. Now he shoots blanks.
What a good-looking man.
And a nice-looking statue.
Yes, and a very proud American.
It's like our waitress last night.
You know, there were a lot of feuds of the past between these men. Think of about 10 years ago between the Iron Sheik and Sergeant Slaughter.
It was wartime. Here we go.
Hey, sound of the bell, and we're off and running with the Gimmick Battle Royal.
But he just pops up sporadically for the WWF from time to time. Did you have what was your relationship like? Once you go from seeing him every week to you're going to do your thing, he's doing his thing. Were you in, what sort of communication did you have with him?
None. None at all. I left the business cold turkey, and I kind of liked, I guess you can say Schiavone turned his back on everybody, and walked away from it. But, I didn't hear from a lot of people, after that. So
I know you're saying that a little tongue in cheek because of all the circumstances around Bobby Heenan, where Bobby Heenan was really critical of you,
right,
in public, and shoot interviews in his book and things like that, where you, were sort of just, done.
Right.
Chat me up. Talk to me a little bit about this, because I'm trying to see what similarities exist and what doesn't exist. did you have any sort of conversation with Gene similar to the way you did with Bobby Heenan? And did you ever talk to Gene about the perceived heat with you and Bobby Heenan?
No, not at all. Did not. Gene Okerlund, and again, I'm going to, Conrad, I really think, and I'm trying to think between 2001 when we went down and 2012 when I saw Gene, or 2014 when I saw Gene. I'm trying to think if Gene and I ever had one phone conversation. And I'm going to be honest with you, I don't think we did. I don't think we talked at all in those 13 years.
It was just sort of see you when I see you.
That's right.
I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I mean, I've got a lot of, people think when you say the word acquaintance that that's a negative thing, but, he was a friend and an acquaintance in that whenever you saw him, you guys picked up right where you left off and it was a great time. But if you didn't see him again for a few years, that was okay. That really means he's probably more of an acquaintance, but you guys were friendly.
Yeah. Well, of course we were. And there would be, we were the type of, but we worked in the business together and we went through a lot together. So I don't think there was any doubt that if we needed each other for anything, we certainly would have helped out each other. But it was an acquaintance. But again, we all shared a common thread, and that was the wrestling business. So it's kind of like with Flair, and we have this common thread that's bound us for life. It's kind of like me and you, right?
Well, you and I, you text me mean things every day. I text you mean things back. So maybe we're a little past acquaintance, but somebody that he was certainly acquainted with was, Fifi, the French maid. And there was an old pay-per-view where they were doing a battle bowl concept where they had almost like the lottery. And as they're spinning this wheel around and drawing the names, they have to come back to this segment many times. Gene was, at his comedic best there, perhaps. Wouldn't you agree?
Nothing like it. Nothing like it. When it was all said and done, Eric Bischoff was not at that pay-per-view, and Eric was running the company, and we were in Pensacola. This was the same event where Heenan did the gimmick. I've talked about Heenan doing the gimmick at the hotel in Pensacola the next morning, where he got tied up in the buffer, the floor buffer, when the guy was buffing the floor, and he got all tied up in the extension cord. The same, but anyway, so we, after the event, we're in the bar, and Eric, I don't know who Eric is talking to on the phone, but Eric says, let me talk to Tony. And Eric says, how was the show? I said, it was great. He said, what was the best part of it, do you think? I said, it was Gene and Fifi. He said, what do you mean? I said, I can't explain it. You just got to see it.
Thank you very much, Tony Schiavone. You have your cross to bear working with Jesse the Body Ventura. My duty, I must say, a whole lot more pleasant. I'm going to be assisted by Fifi, who, of course, has been affiliated with the Nature Boy Ric Flair in the past. But Fifi, it's going to be a little different tonight. You and I are going to have a lot of fun.
Ooh, of course.
Oh, excuse me. Just a second there. Fifi, let's draw the first couple of names for this time. Let's roll this barrel one more time. The way these names come out is the way these guys head to the ring. So let's bring them around. You do the drawings, and I'll mention the names. Oh, excuse me. Whoa. Are we on the air? Apparently we are. I'm just having a great time here. Fifi. Yes, I believe that. Okay, let's draw a couple of more names. Fifi, what do you think? You're having fun so far?
Oh, of course, monsieur, but please.
Oh, give me a break. Good God, I can't believe it. He looks good enough to eat. I don't mind telling you.
Gene, you're on the air.
Gene, you lecherous old fool.
Don't blow on it. That's just an expression, sweetheart. Hold on, wait a minute. Apparently we're on the air. Let's get back to business here.
Yeah, he's giving us the business.
Oh, my word. That's good enough. Let's see what we draw this time. Fifi and myself hard at work with this drum. Fifi, if we get any closer together here, we're going to have to check in someplace. All right. Wait a second. All right, the name of Ricky the Dragon Steamboat. Excuse me there, sweetheart. It gives a whole different meaning to the word being tied up, if you know what
I don't understand what you mean.
Hold on a second. Apparently we're back on the air. Mean Gene back with Fifi. Yes, and I wonder if we could, for some reason I'm getting a little nervous here. I don't know, I don't have a clue. Fifi, I can't tell you how enjoyable this is.
Oh, this is very interesting.
Yeah, let's see. Who do we have here? Fifi, if you just let me know just
What are you looking at, Mr. G?
What was that, Fifi?
What are you looking at?
I saw something here reminded me of melons. I don't know what it was. Let's go. See if we can figure something out here.
That was basically it. I don't know, because it was really kind of at moments, and I mentioned this earlier, it was kind of moments over the top risque for us. And I remember thinking, I don't know if Gene's going to get any heat about this or not. And every time they would come back, he would be, he had the mic kind of off to the side or something where you could hear him, and he was hitting on her or saying, things to her. And of course, she was the French maid, so she didn't necessarily understand what was going on. She did a good job of playing the part as well. So I remember thinking, wow, I don't know if we're going to get any heat about this or not. And I don't know if Gene did, but I didn't hear anything more about it. But it really was, I thought, because I thought Battle Bowl sucked anyway, I thought it was the best part of the show. All those ins and outs. Jesse and I pitching to Gene and Fifi, drawing the names out, the wrestlers on these split screen, getting ready to come out and do the matches. And I just thought it was good. And we also had Okerlund talk to Vader, a pre-tape, when they set up Vader and Flair for Starrcade. And that was a big deal as well.
Well, I tell you, we've talked about it a lot. There's nobody more closely associated with Mean Gene in WCW than Ric Flair. Is that fair to say?
Yes. Nobody, absolutely, because Flair was our flagship, as Hogan became, and the WWE's flagship. And who was with them? It was Gene Okerlund. But they were friends, not only as well.
Tony, when people think about Mean Gene in WCW, the person that maybe is most closely associated with him, at least in fans' eyes, based on what I've seen on social media, is Ric Flair. It's sort of Hulk Hogan for the WWF, Ric Flair for WCW. And since you're Mr. WCW, I figure who better to get as maybe a little surprise run-in, special guest, unannounced, to celebrate the life of Mean Gene than the champ.
Tony Schiavone.
Hey, what do you say, you son of a bitch?
I say good morning. How are you?
I'm fine, man.
Your running mate is gone. Ma'am.
Oh my God.
Some great times.
You're not kidding.
Great times.
I mentioned the fact that you called him Dr. Okerlund.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mentioned the fact that there were many times in the bar where he would take those glasses. He called him the cheaters, and he put them on the edge of his nose, and he would tell a lady about doing an exam on her or something like that, and he would just fucking absolutely. I like you to meet my friend Dr. Okerlund here.
Yeah, no, I couldn't help but say that. He was so damn entertaining, boy. So much fun.
Yeah.
He just brought so much entertainment. He didn't have to know a lot about what was going on in a particular match or the angle, but he just, he felt the crowd. It just came natural to him, and he fed off that, which, made whatever interview he was involved in or whatever sequence or scenario he was involved in better. He just had that, and that he carried that through his everyday life. He was that funny.
Oh yeah, it was one of the funniest guys ever. And I mentioned the fact that he was so entertaining, but he never took away from what you guys were saying. Even though he was entertaining, he enhanced that.
So that's what I'm saying. He just it didn't. He would throw in a comment. You know, I was looking at some of the old stuff last night, and he would say, he'd go, "Oh no, the laundry folks. I'm sorry."
Right.
He's about to lose the laundry again. God, I've seen this so many times, but never on national TV. I mean, he just went with it. You know what I mean? And because I never told him what I was going to do.
Right.
He just he was the best. Yeah. I mean, I'm going to give you your due, Tony. I'm going to give you your due as well, Tony. I mean, and I always have to qualify this so nobody gets upset.
Yeah.
You know, you guys weren't told what to say.
Right.
You went out there and you just talked and basically said what you felt. And that'd be my take on it, unless I'm misinformed or I was around you guys a lot.
Right.
You know, you had an idea, you had a sketch. Now it's, I think the guys are, you know, under a lot of scrutiny, as is the talent, you know, to be.
Yeah, told what to do. Right.
Well, not just told what to do, but to bullet points and, you know, because there is so much that each, you know, the talent has to talk about aside from promoting themselves.
Right.
You know, but just, you know, the pay-per-view, the day, the event, the, you know, the history of it or whatever it might be. So, and you guys just went out there and you called it, and, you know, you called what you saw it because you were familiar with it. Number one. Number two, you enjoyed it. And number three, it's what you felt, which made it sound real. Does that make sense?
Yeah, oh, yeah, absolutely it does. Yeah.
Yeah, Gordon Soley had the same knack. I mean, it just, you know, you guys, basically, if wrestlers would admit to this, an announcer could make him break you. He really could.
Yeah.
The guy calling it, because when you're in the ring and you have no idea what the announcer is saying, you're basically in the hands of the guy talking about you or the people.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's, you know, I think it's easier to say nice things about people that are performing at a high level, but it's also your job to put people over there that have no talent.
Exactly.
You know, I'm not going to use any examples.
You know what? That it means a lot that you would say that, because What's
the truth?
Well, and I go back to, this. I say the same thing in a different way, that the most memorable things that you did, all with a stick, was back in the old days in TBS in the 80s, when you would go out, you knew what the angle was. They didn't tell you what to say, and you would go out there and freestyle for 3 or 4 minutes. And that's what people remember, because they let Ric Flair, they let Gene Okerlund, and they let Tony Schiavone do what they were paid to do. And that's bring what they had to the table. And those are the most memorable things.
Well, and also, we had to sometimes, if you remember, Tony, which I'm sure you do, I had to talk about 3 different opponents.
Right, yeah.
That makes sense. I'd start out with Dusty Rhodes and flip over to Nikita,
right,
and end up on Magnum or you know, whatever, or Sting. You know what I mean?
Or
depending on where we were going that week and the matches.
Right.
And with no sleep and 8 o'clock in the morning, that's tough to do.
Right. Yes, it was. Yeah.
That's why I could never find you on Friday night. Lois had your lock and key. No, you're not going out with him. I don't care where. And if you're taking a break in the afternoon, don't tell me where he's taking you.
Oh my God.
That place is still there. I drive by it on the way home from the airport all the time. I think I carved your initials in the wall
Oh,
in Chinese.
In the bathroom in Cicero.
Yeah. You remember that too?
Oh, yes. I remember some of it.
How about Cheyenne, Wyoming?
Oh, I don't know what you're talking about there. I told your kid that story, the Georgia game.
Yeah.
And he said, that's the best part of the game.
I know. Tell me more, Dad. I said, I don't know what that fucker's talking about. I don't know. Jesus. Well, this is supposed to be, we're supposed to, hey, Conrad, would you intervene here? This is kind of broken down here.
Yeah, I feel like we're on the Ric Flair show again. So, Rick, we're celebrating, of course, Mean Gene Okerlund. And I think most wrestling fans associate him with two wrestlers more than anybody else, Hulk Hogan in the WWF and you in WCW. And most of that is because of the way you would introduce your promos with him, and you would yell his name and by God, the whole deal. How did that come about? And did he enjoy that? And tell us how that whole process happened.
I don't have an answer to it. I just got in the ring and said it one day. And Hulk, of course, let me tell you something, Mean Gene. I mean, that's the way he started his promos for years. And, I just, Hulk, just ran his interview off Mean Gene. I used to love to, involve Mean Gene in it. Does that make sense? And, I actually, if I look at it realistically, I was trying to entertain Mean Gene or entertain Tony.
Sure.
When I was out there. If I'm entertaining a guy that has to do this for a living, 300 days a year, it's hard to do, especially at 8 o'clock in the morning, for WCW. But with Gene, it was just, he was just so much fun. And then, of course, Gene and I was telling Hunter the other day, we contributed to each other's health issues just to survive WCW. when the show was over, I don't even think we checked in. He just walked right through the lobby into the bar.
Right. Well, Rick, it was
too straight up dirty. Do you have blue cheese olives for the doctor here?
Oh, God. Well, you know what?
Good look.
It was tough at times. It really was. And you had to develop friendships, and you had to go to the bars and medicate yourself to get through some of the shit that was going on.
Well, just to get through what we had just done. Prepare ourselves for the next week.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh,
Rick, the promo you were talking about where you stripped down to your boxers in the middle of your feud with Eric Bischoff in the middle of a Monday Nitro. Mm-hmm. Did you give any sort of heads up to Gene what was going to happen? Did he have an idea that was coming, or
nothing? He had none. As a matter of fact, I ran that idea by Eric. I just came up with it. I couldn't think. I knew it wasn't retired or anything like that, but I didn't know. He said, "Well, we'll have the match. I don't know what you think." And I said, and I actually thought about that. But I ran that by him. He said, "Yeah, let's see, but don't go too far with the clothes." So I said, "I won't."
Right. I remember thinking while that happened, and I didn't know it was going to happen. I remember thinking, "Oh my God, they're going to see the Ric Flair that we all see."
Yeah. Yeah, I know.
Away from the arena. So
I know, God. That we all see. Thanks, Tony. Jesus.
Here he is.
I fall off the wagon one time and I'm labeled.
One of the things I wanted to bring up with you, Rick, before we let you go, because I know you're traveling today, is we've got a lot of feedback that a lot of people's favorite Mean Gene memory in WCW was the Starrcade 93 show where they came to your house and then you guys rode to the arena and you're talking about your big match with Vader. And even over the weekend, Cody told me that, that's his one of his favorite wrestling memories, that particular piece of business. And what Cody likes so much about it is He sort of believes that there wasn't a ton of scripting. You guys knew what story you were trying to tell, and you took a cameraman with you and you just let it rip. Tell me about that Starrcade 93 ride to the arena.
Well, Dusty put that all together as usual. Dusty was one step ahead of his time, and he wanted to make it an event. And Gene and I have been such good friends, and the irony of it is now look at you're married to one of the lovely young girls in the picture, and look where Ashley is now.
Yeah.
Which makes it even more relevant, but. Yeah, we just tried to make it look as real as possible, and the reason it came across natural is it was natural. I didn't know at that point. I actually was, I was actually thinking about going back to the WWF. I was. It was just, I was feeling it. What it is, there was nobody else to take that spot. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And of course, it's one of those matches where I put my career on the line. How many of those did I have? You know what I mean?
Right.
It was just, God, what are we going to do? And I actually listened to a little bit to your podcast with Eric Conrad maybe a month ago. He was talking about the Sid thing with me and all that. That was one of those deals where Sid wasn't feeling that. So that made it a long night, but it was worth it. And another thing that Mika would tell, my mom and dad only saw me wrestle 3 times in my life.
Wow.
And so that was they saw me win it. Didn't even know what that meant in Kansas City because it was such a blowing opportunity to have a big arena and a city that was familiar. Like if we'd done that with Dusty and I in Charlotte, or if we'd done it in Tampa or Atlanta, but for some reason, Geigel was the president in NWA then, and we had to have it in Kansas City of all places, where they barely even knew Dusty and I. If they knew us, it was off the cable, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then you throw in Lou Thesz. I mean, it was a debacle to begin with. And those are the things that Geigel, I look at him and I think, boy, the day they made him the president of NWA, the day it started to fall apart. When Sam retired and they gave Geigel the reins, and, we started making it convenient for whatever anybody wanted to do. Whereas before you had to go right through Sam and it was an hour or it was nothing. Does that make sense? Then it started getting diluted, with the Von Erichs, and then once you start, it's hard to say no to somebody else. So,
Rick, do you remember at the end of Starrcade 93, Okerlund was there with your family? You had done that emotional ride with him, but at the end of the show, you're there with Okerlund, and you really actually break down. And you really start to cry because it was a big moment for you, and Okerlund shared it with you and your family backstage.
Yeah, well, what made it a big moment, was I don't remember if my mom and dad were on camera or not. I think it's the fact that my mom and dad, and here's all the kids, and with my schedule being what it had been for so many years, I actually was, which I've said this before, so it's something I looked forward to Eric firing me and getting mad at me and sending me home because I finally got to go home. Does that make sense?
Yeah, oh yeah.
Because I never got to see the kids otherwise because I was traveling, and in the 80s, of course, Tony, the schedule, we were never home,
Right.
Even in your role, you were gone a hell of a lot more than you are now with what you're doing now, and you're still working, 2 or 3 different jobs, but you're home at night. You know what I mean?
Right. Sure.
And you were there basically to see all your kids grow up. That wasn't the case with the guys that wrestled in the 70s and 80s and even into the 90s. I mean, when I first went to WWF in the 90s, we were, every day, 70, 80 days out on the road. But at the same time, business was good. everything was sold out. So you can't complain.
Right.
And I had so much fun. I was lucky every time I was there. I was fortunate enough to be around a bunch of guys like DiBiase, Henning, Bobby Heenan, Gene, and God, the list goes on. And Road Warriors, people I like to travel with, and have people I had fun with. So, after a while, it becomes a way of life. You don't look at the downside to it. Does that make sense?
Oh, absolutely.
But getting back to Gene, most certainly, I couldn't wait to see Okerlund at the TV. I just couldn't wait.
Yeah.
Gino waited in that.
I know. He'd make you light up, wouldn't he?
Oh, God, I love it.
Yeah.
He'd twirl into that mustache and say, "What have you got in mind, Nate?"
And you go to the bar and you say, "Sweetheart, I'd like you to meet my friend, Dr. Okerlund." And he put
yes, of course.
Oh, my God. He put those specs on, and the bar just came to life.
Oh, I know. It was absolutely unbelievable.
Yeah.
And just having so much fun. You had to,
yeah.
So many people decompressed, and I'm not saying alcohol is healthy, but I'm not plugging alcohol as being healthy, but
right.
It's much better for you as opposed to the other ways that we've all unfortunately seen our friends pass by with, and that's and I don't think there's anything wrong. My dad told me so many years ago, if you can find something to laugh about every day, you're gonna be good.
Yeah.
You can't sit there and dwell on the negative. So,
no,
even though we knocked everybody in the business while we were drinking, crucified some people.
Yes, we motherfucked.
We were still laughing.
Oh, boy.
Hey, that blonde is still looking for you in St. Louis, Tony.
Okay, Rick. Well, I appreciate you being with us here on What Happened When.
Hey, I walked through the airport. Everybody says, Tony Schiavone talks about you a lot on his show. Really? Can't imagine why. Why don't you guys announce that next week on the Tony Schiavone show, Ric Flair is going to tell his 10 best Schiavone stories?
Yes! That's what the fans want. I love it.
Hey, Rick, I know you gotta go. I know you gotta go. I know you gotta get out of here.
I do. By all means, I know. You guys ought to see Wendy right now. Oh, Tony. Yeah.
Well, listen, man, we appreciate you taking a few minutes to celebrate Mean Gene. That's what today was all about, and I'm sure I'll see you soon.
Anytime, guys.
Thanks, man.
Yeah, the funeral's on Wednesday. It'll be a day we start crying again, but he was just simply the greatest. And he's a guy. When you guys sit down at the end of the day, and I'm very comfortable saying this. There'll never be another Gene Okerlund. The voice, the finesse, and his approach to life and the business. So we'll leave it at that. Okay, guys.
Well said, man. Thanks for taking a few minutes.
Okay, guys. Take care. Have a good day.
All right, you too.
All right.
Happy birthday to your wife.
You mean your daughter?
To your wife.
Oh, yeah. You know what's funny is the other day I told her, I said, "You're no longer Ric Flair's daughter. Now you're Conrad Thompson's wife."
Okay, happy birthday to my daughter and your wife. What'd you buy
her? She'll send you pictures, I'm sure.
Huh?
She'll send you some pictures.
Well, at what time do you start buying the father-in-law stuff?
Well, you've never done the things for me that she's done, so we'll leave it at that.
Okay.
See you, Pop.
God, it's rough knowing that my daughter goes to bed with you at night. That's a lot for me to think about.
Oh my
gosh, we're off the rails. I love it. Safe travels, bud.
That's a lot to digest as a father. Goodbye.
It's a lot for her to digest too. See you, bud.
Oh yeah. You forever will be in the eyes of me and Wendy, Mr. Bahama Breeze.
And on that note, we gotta go. We are desperately out of time. Well, I didn't mean to steal your gimmick there. We're getting off the rails there in a hurry, but what a way to finish our celebration of Mean Gene Okerlund. Wouldn't you agree?
Oh, I would agree. And it is a celebration of Gene Okerlund. There'll always be somebody that can do play-by-play, that will be a great play-by-play guy that will be remembered. But there'll never be anybody as good as Gene Okerlund, ever. He was born in that role. And I even think there was an article that I read, I don't know if it was Deadspin or what, that said that he embodied professional wrestling. He was professional wrestling. He was exactly the man that you would want in that role. There will never be anybody like him. And I'm really going to miss him. And I feel bad that I did not connect with him enough in the later part of life.
Well, let's make that one of your New Year's resolutions, man. We're going to try to do better on that in 2019. Yeah. And I hope that everybody listening does that, because what you're saying right there is a real life situation where a lot of us in our day-to-day lives just get caught up with what we're doing. And we don't take a few minutes to reach out to other people who are an important part of our lives and catch up with them and just let them know what they mean to us. And if we can all do better with that in 2019, the world will be a better place.
Very well said, Conrad. Thank you, buddy. Thank you very much.
Well, let's, you normally throw us out of here with something sort of fun.
Yep.
You got anything off the top of your head we can do to send us off with a little Mean Gene, a little nod to Mean Gene?
Yeah, I think we ought to send them off with this because we are desperately out of time, but the memory of Gene Okerlund never is.
We'll see you next week on What Happened When with Tony Schiavone.
I don't mind telling you. Cool. I'm a bigger man. Cool. Well, how did we get into this?
That's okay, man.
By the way, ladies and gentlemen, this past week, an extraordinary amount of money, Gitas, the long green, was offered to a superstar. Mark Madden will have complete details on that story tonight during his exclusive hotline report. Give the Madman a call from the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette at 1-900-909.